Welcome back to Sunday edition on KTN News. Many thanks for staying with us. Let's stay with this discussion, but try to move it a level up. And all these proposals that have been made, the additional, the introduction or the proposal by Raila Odinga for a three-tier system of government, as well as what has been well into NASA's proposals, that is going back to a parliamentary system of government, something that has been vehemently opposed to by Deputy President William Ruto and his political allies. All these things would require a referendum, and this has brought another debate whether or not to have a referendum. That is what I want to discuss in the next 30 minutes also with my panel in studio this morning. Let me start with you, and let's start where we left off with it. What was said at the devolution conference, the three-tier system of government, the politics of it. Some people seem to think that all this and the push for a referendum is a reminiscent of the 1970s, where there was efforts to block retired President Daniel Arap Moi, then Vice President, from assuming office when Jomo Kenyatta was not in office or passed on, if that was to happen. There are people like Kihika Kimani and the late Njenga Karume as well, who are proposing to have the Speaker of the National Assembly or the Chief Justice or the head of civil service take over as president for 90 days, just to make sure President Daniel Arap Moi did not ascend to become head of state. Is this what is happening to William Ruto?
That is what folks loyal to Ruto will tell you, that everybody in Kenya, that the enemies are regrouping to stop Ruto from becoming the next president of Kenya. Right. In fact, they go further and say that when President Kenyatta, when he was president, on his exit, Moi took over a solid presidential system, and Kibaki took over a solid presidential system, and the younger Kenyatta has taken over a solid presidential system. And as far as they are concerned, it's cast in iron that in 2022, the next president of the Republic of Kenya is going to be Ruto. And they're beginning to wonder, who is this crawling from the woodwork who wants to curtail these powers, that our man from our village, the fella they say who used to sell chicken, that is going to be, they're going to curtail that power. But there's a big difference, because in the late 70s, people wanted to stop Moi from becoming the next president of the Republic of Kenya by attempting to change the constitution, because then it was automatic that upon the death of a president, the vice president automatically within 90 days would take over and become the next head of state. And the Ruto supporters obviously are missing the narrative. This time around, people are asking themselves, do we need to go on with a presidential system, or do we need to adopt a parliamentary system? And Musalia Mudavadi has given very good examples. That right now, a cabinet secretary goes to face a committee at the National Assembly, and instead of engaging in a conversation, it's as good as giving them a lecture, because the cabinet secretary knows that the president, who's got amazing political capital, will cover him whether or not he ventures into mischief. And the proponents of Ruto, who don't want a referendum, or who don't want us to go to a parliamentary system, are saying that if you go to a parliamentary system, it's going to be chaos. You're going to be having a prime minister every single day in the morning. But all over the world, it's been confirmed without doubt that a parliamentary system is the most stable form of government, with a few permutations and combinations. Right. And we can give examples till the cows come home, but let's just focus on two examples. Israel is a very strong parliamentary democracy. You can go to India, you can go to Italy, you can go to UK, you can go to New Zealand, you can go to Australia. And if there are those people who fear that our parliamentary democracy may not be very strong, then what has happened in Italy and in the UK, they've got a very strong bureaucracy which is able to absorb those shocks. Right. That when one prime minister moves out of office, there's no vacuum created. And in any event, I mean, when the prime minister really is the leader of the party with the biggest member at the National Assembly, that is something which will be decided in one evening. And to cure the ills that may be occasioned by a parliamentary democracy, there were many suggestions, and one of these suggestions was brought at Bomas, but it was not given the right attention. What we now need in Kenya, in my view, is to have Kenya being positioned as one constituency. That when we go to vote for a parliamentary system, we are voting for political parties. So in the event that Mr. Wheeler here was interested in going to the National Assembly, he will campaign for a political party of his choice. And when he goes to the National Assembly, he will not be representing a constituency in Migori or in Suna. He will be a member of the National Assembly. And that would be a very good strategy to strengthen devolution. Right. Because then now you leave the governors to work on devolution, and you leave the MCS to work on devolution.
Good points. Mark, this proposal by Raila Odinga, do you agree with that school of thought that it is an effort to bring back or to push that agenda of parliamentary system of government through the back door?
One of the things you have to take into consideration is the 2005 referendum, where the main reason why Raila Odinga was against it was because of, it was called Ugatuzi then, which was basically a federal system. A federal system in a country such as Kenya is tricky. The reason why parliamentary systems work, and I'll give you an example of the German one, is because you have everything in place already. It is a going concern. The German economy, the German political space is considerably stable. And
but they started somewhere.
Yeah, they started somewhere, and I'll tell you where they started. And therefore, you have the capacity to negotiate everything. In Germany, if Angela Merkel wants to comb her hair, her political partners in her coalition have to agree. There is no decision that is made in Germany without inclusivity. The problem with the Kenyan example is if we go parliamentary system without fixing our party system, then we will have the tumbocracy that is parliament behaving the same way in an executive role. That is very dangerous, and I'll tell you why it's dangerous. When parliamentarians were ministers, what was the first thing they did? If you are a water minister, all the water projects were in your constituency. If you are a minister of finance, all the jobs you are giving out were from your constituency. Why? Because you knew that your ministerial job and your MP job was tied to your popularity in the village. Right. And therefore what happens is you're constricted to make political decisions. The reason we divorced the executive from parliament is because Matiang'i and Amina do not need to be voted back. So they can make decisions that are unpopular without political ramifications to themselves. That is number one. Right. However, if you adopt the South African system, which is not parliamentary per se, it is representative. What I mean is when you go to vote, you do not vote for a person in any constituency. You vote for a party. Now, the party has a list. If it wins 50%, then 50% of that list goes to parliament. This is the same for Namibia. It's the same for South Africa. It's the same for Angola. It's a very powerful system because what that does is that it strengthens political parties. Right. And when someone goes to parliament, they don't just represent their constituency, they represent the nation in their political party. It also deals with tribalism because then the list is inclusive. And that's what, that kind of shift is something that we can consider.
All right.
Where parliamentarians are not executive, and they are chosen by the people through party systems. Yes.
Hesbon, should we go parliamentary?
Well, I mean, you can make a case for parliamentary for the simple reason that the main thing that has been ailing our politics is the winner takes it all. And I think that can be addressed through a parliamentary system where you'll have an executive prime minister. But I think this conversation is attracting a lot of suspicion, especially from the deputy president's quarters, for the simple reason that you're looking at people who have enjoyed the, powerful presidential system. Right. And when they're at the twilight of their career and they're thinking, the person who is well poised to take over the presidency is going to be all this powerful, they are coming out to help solve the situation. Yes, so the timing is what is suspect. But even if the timing is suspect, I think Kenyans should appreciate the fact that this is a good opportunity to have anything that would help the political destiny of this country take shape, be affected, because we have two individuals that are perceived not to be interested in the presidency come 2022. So if they midwife the whole process, they are likely to be perceived as people who are doing it for Kenyans. And I think that is how I'm perceiving President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. And it should be something that no one should say would benefit any individual. I don't think anything that Raila is suggesting is benefiting him. I can't see that. And I don't also want to imagine that they are doing this for selfish interests.
Right.
And it is not something that should worry the deputy president's quarters.
Right.
It is not through the back door. It is in the public domain. We can actually talk about these things and see whether we go the parliamentary system or we just find a way of fixing the system.
The presidential. All right. Kipchumba, do you think this is reminiscent of 1978 or those years? I was not born. When there are concerted efforts to lock out the deputy president from assuming office, from what is a very clear succession plan, from the Jubilee point of view, of course.
We need to look at it from a broader perspective. And to take the point home, you can never take seriously the proposal from a man who has never won a running race when they tell you what medal we should be giving the winner. It will be pure madness. If you take that proposal, the man has never tested a win in running, he cannot lecture us on what should be fated to a man who wins the race at the end of the day. Back to the constitutional amendment and all this. In 1978, those people feared that Moi will come and their grip in power will go and everything. We must not and we must stop looking at power as an instrument of personal enrichment. That is the bad African way we look at things. We must widen the bracket to the extent that we know and we are comfortable that if today Owila is the president, my interests are taken care of. And this must be done with the spirit that we are Kenyans, we are all equal before anything else. But we cannot do that when we feel that power makes us more equal than the rest. We cannot perpetrate an animal farm mentality. That is purely Machiavellian in nature. Those people propagating the politics that the constitution must be changed because William Ruto is supposed to be the president are losing the point. The constitution must be changed because the Wanjiku are feeling so. The changing of a constitution should be purely an organic thing, not a superfluous function of the elite. If we were to go that way, then we will need a lot of handshakes in the post-2022 era to correct a lot of anomalies that will have been accrued along the way. And we need to be a country governed by the rule of law and not the rule of wishes of men. If today Raila Odinga feels that we need to amend a constitution, we need to ask ourselves, 8 months ago, Raila Odinga told us that we needed electoral justice, we needed all manner of things, and he even told us that we should succeed in this country. What makes him, after going to office of the president, what has changed? The interrogation will be from that point. You talked about electoral justice. The post of a prime minister, an executive prime minister, does not bring any of those. Are you a man after your own soul, or you are after the soul of the country?
All right, good points. I wanted us to bring some other opinions on this issue, and we have been taking a look at that debate from the point of the introduction of the proposal for a three-tier government. Our senior political affairs reporter, Patrick Amimo, sought to find out just what some of the insiders are saying about this.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga has ignited debate on the structure of devolution when he suggested that Kenyans should revisit the Bomas draft constitution and split the country into 14 regions.
Is that Raila wants a creation of a federal state. He is not saying it directly, but I think the thinking is that let's create a federal state. A federal state where you have the state at national level, as we know it, Kenya today. We divide Kenya into states. Then within the states, you have counties. This is a model in Nigeria, it's a model in America.
We have very many successful federal and confederal states. The United States of America is such a country as that. We have countries such as Canada, not perhaps as federal as you would find in the United States. We have confederal countries such as Switzerland. It is our duty to ensure that whichever governance system we choose is one that works.
Lumumba explained what informed the Bomas draft constitutions to create 14 regional administrative units, each made up of several districts that were structured along the former 8 provinces.
We were trying to achieve 2 things. Economic viability, holding all factors constant. 2, creating units that were not ethnic enclaves. And 3, ensuring that people representation is guaranteed. And 4, ensuring that there is national cohesion.
The 2010 constitution introduced 2 tiers of government at national and county levels, which was a radical departure from the Bomas draft.
And those of us who served in the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission are clear and were clear that the creation of 47 counties was wrong.
The opposition National Super Alliance wants the constitution changed to adopt a parliamentary system and create the position of the Prime Minister. The structure of the executive was one of the contentious issues during the constitution-making process. Kenya adopted a new constitution in August 2010 after negotiations where former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's ODM party lost push for a parliamentary system but succeeded in the push for devolution, whereas former President Mwai Kibaki's PNU bagged the presidential system. But the desire to change the constitution has continued.
Raila is proposing a complete change of the character of the executive. Raila wants a pure parliamentary democracy. That is, you separate the government from the state. And then you have a prime minister who is the head of government and responsible and accountable to parliament.
Well, I don't think that our country as constituted can sit well with a pure presidential system a la United States of America.
Raila argues counties as currently constituted are not attractive to investors due to their sizes. Raila wants counties restructured through regional blocks to create units with a size and population that can make them economically viable.
Counties have tested what power is. They know exactly what it means. Now, you tell Kiabu people that now you are going to govern you from Muranga, or we are going to govern you now. We create another region called, we bring together Kiabu, Muranga, and Nyeri together, and then you say we are creating. They won't. In fact, what you are doing is you are creating a rebellion.
But unfortunately, in Kenya, we have become so wedded to these little ethnic, sub-ethnic units that it's not going to be easy. But the truth is, we must be bold enough to confront this issue so that we can earn the dividends of devolution, which is a good thing.
The place of the provincial administration that was inherited from the colonial administration has been another thorny issue in the constitution. KTN News.
Thank you, Patrick. I want you gentlemen to respond to some of those issues raised there and also respond to this question. Is the Change the Constitution movement being reborn yet again?
Well, you know, in my view, that's propaganda, which is selling very well from Ruto's side. There are powerful forces in Kenya that want to ensure that he doesn't become president. And when you go with that kind of message to the masses, there are a number of people who will be very happy and others will be annoyed. But at the end of the day, maybe what we need to ask ourselves, what works for our national interest and what works for our public interest? Mm-hmm. And if you speak to even diehard Jubilee persons, including people close to Ruto, when they're not being cautious in private, they'll tell you that Kenya needs a parliamentary system. However, what we may not run with is what Raila is recommending about having that 3-tier system. Mm-hmm. Because right now, as it is, the bureaucracy is not delivering any value. And adding another layer will not guarantee any levels of success. And I think as a nation, we need to come into terms and say, a parliamentary system is the one which works in a nation, and this is what Lumumba has indicated, that we are a tribal society, we are led by tribal chiefs, and we'll only be happy when we see our tribal chiefs seated somewhere in the administration. Mm-hmm. And you recall, the so-called Nusumkata administration has been the most successful government since independence, because most Kenyans felt that they were part and parcel simply because they saw a fella from their village in the national administration, and they are happy with that. Right. But this thing that changed the constitution group, that it's folks are gathering in dark corners trying to stop the Ruto from becoming president. That is a mischief which we must run away from. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't be anchoring the change of a constitution simply on personalities. And folks must not fear discussing this, that we need to change the constitution because they fear on stepping on the toes of Ruto. I mean, who knows? Ruto may be the prime beneficiary of a parliamentary system. If he takes over Jubilee as it is, then as it were, I mean, if you do the sum today as it is, and Ruto takes over Jubilee, he would be automatically be the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. So I don't understand why people in his quarters are nervous, and I don't understand also why Raila Odinga wants to introduce that regional administration, because that one will not work in any way.
Mark, from a Jubilee perspective, are they under any pressure, because it's a political issue, to endorse these referendum, these constitutional changes?
I think Jubilee sits at a rather comfortable position. Like I said before, the problems that are being broached and trying to be tackled here do not necessarily need a constitutional referendum. Actually, for President Uhuru Kenyatta, he can pretty much effect a chief minister position by a stroke of a pen. So he's sitting pretty by reason of the fact that he has ways of doing this. The people who actually have to do a lot of campaigning and a lot of talk, and why they're pushing for referenda, is NASA. Why? Because without something to galvanize them, without something to raise passions about, NASA is in the cold. So to keep yourself relevant, you've got to push for a referendum. But the reality of the matter is this: the issues that are being discussed are pertinent, and they're pertinent beyond the sphere of politics. And we do need to solve them. The pressure should not be based on who will be president in 2022. Right. The pressure should be based on what is good for the country. And that's what must happen. Representation must stop being about me seeing a lawyer like me at top office. That needs to change. And if that does not change, we'll be at the same place. Because what we are trying to address at the back of our minds is that the Luya wants a Luya prime minister, the Kamba want a deputy president, the Kalenjin want a president, the Kisis want a finance minister. That is the problem. Right. We need to shift that and get representation to be outside of your last name.
All right. Hasbun, your final thoughts on this?
Well, I want to agree with Buck and also disagree with him, because the way I'm looking at it, it's not a political party issue. There is nothing like Jubilee sitting pretty, because this is not a Jubilee thing. This is a leadership issue, and that's why the key leaders that have come to the fore, President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Amolo Odinga, and the deputy president. And I don't think they're talking on behalf of political parties. They're talking on behalf of Kenyans who are looking at our politics and how we can save, the political turmoil that characterizes most of our elections. So from what I'm seeing, I want to believe that it is neither a question of whether we go parliamentary or is it fully presidential. You're already presidential. Right. It is a question of how do we ensure that in the next subsequent elections that we are going to have, we still remain one. Whether going parliamentary is what will solve that, now that is in the public domain. It's a question that will have to be ventilated by the public. We'll wait for the framing of the referendum question if we get there.
Do you, Kipchumba, do you believe this is one thing that can split the Jubilee side?
I don't think Jubilee can be split because of this referendum talks or the constitutional amendment talks. What I need us to look at is that then every time there's political calm, there are people who lose jobs. The bloggers, and the political stock market diminishes. And such thing happened when Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, and Raila Odinga shook hands. The political stock market it's crumbled. And now the brokers in that market are doing what they can to try and bring back their stocks. And one of the good commodity to stock in that market is change the constitution referendum, say that there are cracks in Jubilee. I think the brokers are busy because they have run out of what to do, and that's why they are generating all kind of things. Generating the cracks that there are cracks in Jubilee. You cannot have cracks about nothing. You cannot have an agenda discussing nothing. We cannot have cracks about a referendum which is not there. And in terms of the issues of whether we go presidential or parliamentary, we cannot go parliamentary as how we are as a country. One, we are a tribal nation. We must agree to that. Two, we need to first of all develop the infrastructure before we go parliamentary. We need to do what we call proportional representation. You cannot today, my member of parliament represents 128,000 voters. You have another parliamentarian representing, let's say Budalangi, representing 38,000 voters. There can never be equal vote in such a debate or when it comes to voting for executive prime minister.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, gentlemen. It's a debate that we'll continue to keep an eye on, a very important discussion across the country. Thank you for staying with us. Let me take a look at some of your views very quickly on all we've discussed. Yugi Patrick says on Twitter, Japan's population is more than 127 million and our physical size is smaller than Kenya. Andrew Franklin says, how can a constitutional amendment, a referendum be organized and held by a thoroughly discredited IEBC? Edgar Wangula says, we are yet to see fruits of devolution, yet Raila is proposing constitutional amendment. It cannot work. We need to see that fruit first for any changes to come. Rotich Nehemiah says, a 3-tier system would cost the taxpayers so much. It's expensive. Kenya needs leaders of integrity. We're currently having an acute shortage of such leaders. And finally, Pantera Leo says, people are being hoodwinked to talk about a referendum while Ndakaini Dam is being drained. Thank you for your tweets and your opinions on what we've discussed so far. Stay with us here on Sunday edition. When we return, we have the final discussion and talk about devolution 5 years on. Stay with us.